Hey everybody, welcome back to Reach Out Reptiles. My name is Garrett Hartle, and we are going to dive deep as we can, into another pure locality. That's right, we got a pure locality spotlight on the Madu Island retic. All right, Madu Island, aka Honey Island, is a part of the chain of 3 islands that are extremely remote, and that's kind of where those real deal superdwarfs come from. That would be Karrampa, Kalatoa, and Madu. Early on in importing, the Madus came in fairly commonly and always under that name of Honey Island. So if you frequent some of the older sources on the internet, you'll see those Honey Island retics. A lot of keepers and breeders in Europe still refer to them by that name, which is great, but that means the same thing. These are the animals that come from Madu Island. This island is a little bit unique in its terrain. It's almost like a long, thin, flat sandbar, for a lack of a better term. It has very little altitude and almost no native habitat left. Because it's a smaller island with a fairly large population, apparently, of locals, they have cultivated that island to grow a lot of mainly coconut and palm trees. Because it's such a narrow and long island, the whole thing is made up of beaches. So if ever there was a beach-going retic, it would be the Madu Island retic. Now, these are superficially similar to the Kalatoa Island as far as their physical traits. So if you imagined a Kalatoa Island animal, and then you said, okay, let's clean it up, less speckling everywhere, a lot more brightness, and kind of a blue and gold undertones, that's what's going to give you the Madu animal. Unfortunately, a lot of those earlier imported Madus fell into the trap that many others did. Honey Island, no one knew where that meant. Madu Island was not a name that was talked about. Kalatoa was the one that everyone knew. They said they were collected from the islands around Kalatoa, so most of the pures were bred into that stuff, and it's very, very difficult to find a pure Madu Island animal in captivity today. These Madu bloodlines have been historically highly sought after for people making combos, whether they realized they were using Madus or not, because of those light, bright tendencies towards color and pattern that make for some phenomenal morph crosses that just look very different from many of the other Superdwarf crosses. When you do look at these Madu crosses, one of the things you'll notice are the bright backgrounds, the thin, clean, refined lines, and especially on the aneries, the ability to fire up into an almost sky blue tone of a gray is really spectacular. Probably one of the more defining traits when differentiating between a Kalatoa and a Madu is the really wide open dorsal. So whether or not the animal is striped, you tend to have the top pattern pulled down more towards the sides and those large white side rosettes, as opposed to a Kalatoa, which pulls all the pattern up to the back, makes it very chaotic. And those Kalatoas also have a high tendency for a single scale wide black dorsal stripe running down the back. Because of the lightness and the brightness of the animal, some of the underlying black tones on the Madus, especially as you go down the side of the animal towards the belly, are almost this hypo looking. They turn into like a translucent gray. A really beautiful look, especially on an animal that's very fired up because it's warm, it's just laid eggs, or it's happy with a big meal in its belly. This is one of the localities that just me personally, I'm a little bit concerned about their conservation status in the wild, especially after talking to some of the researchers who studied some of these Superdwarf Island retics. But none of those numbers are really truly known. It's just when you have an island with very few places to hide and it's kind of wide open, and then collection becomes common in that place, it's very easy to wipe out those types of populations. So I'd be very interested in going to those islands someday and taking a look and see what we can really find there, see what's left after the explosion of superdwarfs in the early pet trade during the 1990s. Because those came in very early and not a lot have been imported ever since the early days of importing superdwarf retics, many of those founding animals were lost to old age, or as I said, never bred to pures, not paired up, leaving very few of these remaining. But for example, here at Reach Out Reptiles, this is one of my favorite localities, and I've only ever managed to collect 1.3 adults. Last year in 2021 was the first time that we ever produced Madus with one small clutch, and then we had 2 clutches of just a single Madu animal hatch out this year. So it's not a locality that's actually going to be ready until many of these babies, now appreciated, grow up and are able to produce pure localities, which is unfortunate because it is such a cool, unique twist to the Superdwarf breeding thing. But because I don't have very much to say more about the Madus, let's just take a look at some of those animals. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed looking at all those Madus, and if you want to quickly, while it's fresh on your mind, compare those to some pure Calatoas, you're going to want to check out this video right here. Thank you guys very much. We'll see you next time. Catch you next time. That's my catchphrase. We'll catch you next time. Video right here. I think this is the ugliest Madu that we have.
Don't say it to his face. You can say that when you put him back.
This is the ugliest Madu. Ugly. Not very good looking. I still love him though.